Hey, it's Anders coming to you live from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today, we are making a bread, a very high hydration focaccia, like this. Beautiful. We're going to use Celtic sea salt, right? Celtic, I think they say, right? Um, and by high hydration, what I mean is our dough is typically around 70%. Well, we're going to scale this up to 80 for this class. And what that does is going to give us more air pockets, a lighter area crust, and it's going to be cooked on our baking steel. I'm using a sheet tray just because I got a lot of oil underneath it, right? And this makes one just a great snack, but you can make sandwiches out. You can put open face sandwiches are amazing, or just eat it like it is. It's got some olive oil, some really nice olive oil, the Celtic sea salt. It's just a great snack. Really easy, but really challenging to make. So we're going to get into the dough first. I'm going to make a batch. And this dough is super advanced, meaning it's really sticky. So you have to be really patient to work with this. So let's get started. And then what we're going to do is in between, we'll have some chances for some questions. I ran out of dough containers because I had to send some up overnight, some dough to a friend in Boston. Clean me out, so I have to get some more. But so today I'm going to be using a bowl, which is cool. So really challenging. This is going to be, I'm going to send the recipe out, but this is an 80% hydration. In this bowl, I have 300 grams of bread flour. We love bread flour. I add my salt into the dough. I've got about 10 grams of sea salt, and that's about this. This is, again, Celtic sea salt, right? And I'm going to put this in and just whisk it around. And I'm not going to work this dough too much because it's going to require a lot of concentration. Because wait till you see how wet it gets. Okay, so now for my yeast, this is about 0.75 because I have a small amount, about 1 gram almost, right? I dump that in and I whisk it around again. And a bowl, because depending how long, if I'm going to make a quick 24-hour recipe, I might want to add a little bit of sugar just to help that fermentation, help give it a little bit of flavor. But if I'm going to let this sit for a day or two, then sugar not necessary. But today, no sugar. This will be the time to add a little bit to it. Now for the water. This is 300 grams of flour, so 80% of that would be 240 grams of water, which I've pre-measured. This is a reverse osmosis water. I drink my water through reverse osmosis. It's filtered basically. So I cook and bake everything with reverse osmosis water. If I don't have a filtered water, right? It's just like, depends where you live. Some tap water is great. Where I am in downtown Grand Rapids, I prefer to have filtered water. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. I just add my water in. And before I'm not going to even get my hand in there because this is so wet. I'm going to use this as a spatula and just keep scraping my sides. And you're just going to see this thing as the flour starts to hydrate. This is because it's such a high hydration, it's a very soft dough and really wet, right? I'm just going to keep doing this until I form like a nice mass of dough. When that water becomes and that flour becomes hydrated, I can put my hand in and just kind of press out any dry clumps of flour. And it's going to get really sticky in about 20 seconds. You can see starting to stick. But as I press out and get that water to come out into the flour, it becomes very, very tacky and sticky. And I'm going to kind of leave it at this. I'm going to probably need this a little bit more after class, but you can see I've got this massive dough. And also, I like to clean my bowl out after I do this just because I like to have a clean bowl. You see that dough that's really sticking to my hand. Okay, so I'm gonna put that aside. So I'm gonna put this aside, but rinse my hand off because it's so sticky. And so I made a little bit of dough yesterday for class today. I made a lot of dough actually, because ultimately we're making a focaccia, right? Or this makes bread too. We can get into that as well, but it's a very versatile recipe. And by adding more water, we're adding more air pockets into the dough, which gives it a different texture altogether. Um, higher, I guess, it's higher level, if you will, to make. Not skill, just this takes a little bit of practice. This is the first time doing this. You're gonna be like, oh my goodness, this is so sticky. So I do have a batch here. Oh, the aroma is incredible. Let me see. I'm gonna show you so typically I'll mix my dough. I'm gonna let it sit for at least 24 hours. After 24 hours, I'm gonna take it and just put it into the fridge for a day or two. If I want to make pizza or dough or bread the next day, I will literally just I'll shape it, which is what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna shape this ball. I'm gonna show you one how wet this is. So I'm gonna read for the bowl. You can see, look at this. It's just like super pliable, right? So I'm gonna scrape it out and place it on the counter. To work with this dough, you're gonna, because it's gonna stick to my hands, I'm gonna get my hands, here's like a really wet, okay? My hands are like, you can see, I don't know if you can see it well, but they're very wet. So now my hands are not gonna stick to the dough because you can see how sticky it is. But instead of folding this by hand, in my hands, I'm gonna fold it on the countertop. I just keep taking a piece of this and pressing it in. Taking out the center, and I'm kind of pushing it toward the center. Do both hands here. Kind of push it to the center. So this is another way of making a dough ball. Just keep picking it up and pressing it in. And as it gets sticky, you can see it's not sticking to my hands because my hands are very wet, almost drippy. I don't know if you can see that, but they're super wet. You see how wet they are? And I just keep folding like so, boom. And the dough's kind of wet, right? So I'm basically forming a ball, and it's like slime ball. This is like a slime ball, right? It's really cool. And I don't know if you can, it's really different than the pizza dough. Again, this is a really tough dough to handle, but we counter that by using water on our hands. You can also use olive oil. I've seen that, but that can get messy too. I like water, and just continue to water your hands as you're working the dough. Okay? And now what I'll do is literally I would take this dough. I should have I'm just gonna scrape this out really quick. I would take a sheet tray. I'll take some olive oil. And I'll just sprinkle the bottom of the pan. I'll place my dough on top. Okay? Make sure it's pinched on the bottom. Place my dough on top. I'm gonna let this proof for 3 or 4 hours and let the glutens relax. Even though this dough is super wet, it's already pretty supple. I'm gonna give it a few hours, and I'm gonna show you what that looks like. In fact, this is the difference. I've let these are the same size. So you can look at this and you get this. These are the same size doughs, but one's been proofing for 3 or 4 hours, and it's gonna be much easier to spread. All right, I'm gonna pause right here to see if we have any questions from you guys. All right, any questions so far? See, my hands aren't even doughy because the water trick, it's very difficult to work with, but by watering our hands, it doesn't stick. So it's a little bit easier. Just keep them very, very wet. Does anybody have any questions yet? Drop them in the box if you have any. Nothing yet? Let's see here. Okay. No questions yet. All right. So now what we're going to do is this has been proofing for 3 hours, and now it's time to press it out. And this is the fun part. I'll show you what I mean by that. You can see this massive piece of dough. This is about 5 or 6, I think it's 600 grams, okay? And now I've got oil underneath it, but it's starting, I want to make sure I press it up, make sure it stays underneath the oil. Pick it up a little bit, get that oil to really run. See how like supple this dough is? A little sticky to the edges. That's okay. I can add a little bit more oil, press it into the bottom. Because now I want to press this dough out. Watch. It's very cloud-like. Like very amoeba. Just keep pressing pressing it out. And again, I've got anything, I want to add a little bit more oil. This dough does absorb a lot of that oil inside of it. That's okay. If you want to take it, you can see how it's starting to fill up the sheet tray, and I just press it out. And because I'm doing a Celtic sea salt focaccia, very basic, right? You can see it's almost covered the edges. Isn't that pretty? Look at the bubbles. Isn't that awesome? Sliding nicely. And what I would do next is, now it's time to bake. So what I do, I've got my oven preheating at 450. I have my baking steel in the bottom rack. I also have one in the top rack, but I only need one steel for this. Because I'm using my baking steel, it's going to get the benefit. The steel is going to blast heat through this sheet tray and cook it. Every square centimeter is going to blast heat into this dough. It's going to help it cook really beautifully, as you can see. For my cooking strategy, this is about a 20-minute bake at 450 degrees. I am going to launch it just like this. I might add a little bit more oil on top. Brush that oil around. You can see I'm just kind of brushing that oil around my hand. Really press it out into the corners. And sometimes, this proofing, it might take a couple of times to press it, a couple of turns, if you will. It may take like 10 or 15 minutes to really get it to the edges, the outer edges. It will start to retract a little bit. So in 10 more minutes, I'll come back and I'll just do this again. I can kind of stretch it over the edges just so I can get into those corners. Nice, huh? Isn't that pretty? So for baking, I'm going to place this in the oven. I'm going to set my timer for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to add my Celtic salt on top. What that does is it allows that the top layer of the focaccia to kind of sear, and we're going to add some salt onto the top of that, and it'll kind of help it stay on top. It'll kind of float on there. We're going to bake it for about 10 more minutes. Open the oven up. We're going to drizzle a little bit more olive oil on top, just so it returns this beautiful color, right? You can see the bottom cooked awesome. You can see those holes in the whole structure. Amazing, right? So you can hear the crispiness, right? You can kind of see it from the, let's take a look inside. It makes great sandwich bread. I mean, look at those holes, right? Isn't that incredible? Makes nice dipping bread, good sandwich. Amazing. Let's get to some questions. And I've got an oil mess here. Let's see. You started this dough 2 days ago, correct? Anna, this is a quarter sheet tray size. These are great. You can get them on Amazon. So it's a sheet tray that we use in our ovens, right? This is a quarter size of that. It's a really nice, manageable size. I love these because I can use them. They're really versatile. They're great to have, easier to clean. Get them on Amazon. You can get like a 4 pack for like $20. You can see how shiny they're, pretty new, super easy. Um, and I started this dough. Actually, no, I did not. This dough was made yesterday. It's a 24-hour dough. Yesterday, I added a little bit of cane sugar in just to help that fermentation process out, give it a little bit of flavor. It's going to taste incredible. 24-hour ferment is really good. Not ideal. I mean, I'd love to have like a 3-day dough if I could, ultimately. This one did not spend any time in the fridge. It was all done at room temperature. Who else has a question? As it's baking, we'll add some salt in about, again, 5 minutes into the bake. I'll remove this so you guys can take a peek at what I'm doing. Smells incredible. Anybody hungry? Right? And if I'm not making, by the way, if I'm not making focaccia with this bread, I can also make like ciabatta bread. Because of this high hydration, I would just take a dough ball, a smaller dough ball, and stretch it out like an accordion. Yes, Malden sea salt flakes. Yeah, Fred, I would, any types of your favorite salts, I would recommend. I love the Celtic stuff. I drink this salt. It's got a really nice flavor to it. I drink it in my water too. I sprinkle a little bit in there. I just love the flavor of it. I think it's really nice. It's almost like making your own electrolytes at home. A little Celtic sea salt, a little bit of lemon juice is really nice too. It's great. It's a really nice, refreshing drink. It's like homemade Gatorade, right? Without the sugar, without the food coloring too. Does anybody else have any questions? Not yet? We're in a shy group today, huh? So what we're going to do is this recipe, we are posting a blog up probably tomorrow. We'll send this video off so you guys can follow along with it as well. It's great. Let's take a look. This has been about 5 minutes. Let's see it. Take it out of the oven here. Looks like a nice pillow. Let me go down here. You guys can see up top. Right? Oh, looks like a pillow, right? But you can see how it's got a little bit of a crust on top now, right? So now what I'll do is I'll take my salt. I'll add it right on top. You can see how it's going to sit on top now. Got really nice flavor. And I'm being, these are smaller flakes. You can get larger flakes too. I'll put this back in the oven for so if I'm going to do a 15 more minute bake, what I'm going to do is put my timer on for 10 minutes. So after 10 minutes, I'm going to remove it again and add a really nice virgin olive oil on top just to give it the absorb. So now when you bite into it, you have that nice color on top. You can see, right? The bottom, you can see the bottom too. The salt will be on top. You can kind of see the flakes. You see the flakes on there? Look at that hole structure, right? That's because we use the higher hydration. It's gonna have more holes than a typical dough at 70%. It's a really nice party trick. Yes, and anybody else have any questions today? Amazing, quiet crowd today. I will get this email out to you guys in the next day or two with the recipe. High hydration. Remember to wet those hands when you're working with this dough because it's very, very tacky and sticky, but that really counters it really well. And for now, how long can you store the bread? Ooh, great question, Fred. 3 days. 3 days is probably fine. If I'm going to store it, I mean, one, I could freeze it. Bread freezes great up to 30, 45 days. Just wrap it really nice and tight. It freezes great. If I'm going to keep it at room temperature, I'll just put a bag around it, like a baggie, and like a freezer bag works nice. They're a good size, and that'll help keep it fresh for a couple of days. Yeah, you're gonna love it, Elaine. Make sure you oh, topping. So yeah, Dave, I mean, really the sky is your limit. You could put, I mean, tomatoes, obviously the traditional rosemary, right? A lot of people like rosemary on top. Tomatoes, you could put the tomatoes on after the bake. You could put some burrata cheese on after the bake. You could actually melt some cheese on top as well. You could sprinkle some or grate some fresh mozzarella on top, have that melt into it with the salt. It would be a really nice flavor. Um, Really, the sky is, your imagination is your limit. Just do whatever you feel like would be a really nice compliment to the bread. Do you have to close the baggie or leave it open? And I would be closing the baggie up just to keep it kind of airtight. It'll soften that bread a little bit. And if you want to crisp it up again, toss it back in the oven just for 5 minutes at 400 degrees. Just it'll really help bring it back alive, get some heat in there. All right, I just read that Detroit pizza is a focaccia crust. Thoughts? Yeah. Hey, Marlene, really good point. We did Detroit style or pan pizza a few weeks ago. Guess what? It was almost identical. We just lowered the hydration, so we played around with that. For 500 grams of flour, this was 400 grams of water. For Detroit style pizza, we did 500 grams of flour with, I believe, 325 grams of water. So really, by playing with that hydration, you play around with the density of the bread. So if you used a lower hydration, you're not going to have as many of those air pockets. It'd be a more dense bread, right? So a different chew, different altogether. But there's different, just by changing, tweaking, one ingredient like the water, it does incredible things. And people, by the way, people do, this is 80%. People do, I've seen 100% hydration, which is like wild. Oh yeah, Janet, you'll love it. Take some pictures and share it. You could make sandwiches out of this, right? Now I could slice this again like this way, right? And I've got two halves and put some, ham and cheese, some mustard, right? Incredible tasting and definitely unique and definitely simple. This is a gluten that with a really nice flour. Remember, because we ferment, we weaken those glutens. This stuff digests beautifully through our system, unlike traditional breads that we buy at the store. By making it your own and fermenting it for a few days, even one day, we break those glutens down and we can digest. So good. And you'll feel good afterwards. Thank you guys for being here. We'll get this email out and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at our next class. If you have any recommendations for classes, andrus@bakingsteel.com. Let me know and we will cover you. Have a beautiful day, you guys. Thank you.